Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so let's review quickly some important aspects from part 1, the lost word, truth. This is part 2. And most human beings have forgotten how to live truthfully. That's what I spoke about in part 1. And it is the driving force, truth, behind achieving the state of equilibrium, the balance, which comes from both the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. And when we operate according to the natural law, you begin to understand the objective difference between right and wrong, which is light versus dark. And you can see this when it's balanced. Because if you're all on one side of the brain, the left or the right, it won't be balanced. Negative knowledge is when someone refuses to look deeper because they feel they already know everything. But what's really going on is the illusion of knowledge. And the greatest enemy may not be ignorance, but the illusion of knowing. And many people live trapped in this illusion. It's like the intellectuals. We can look at it like the left brain prison and the refusal to take personal responsibility, which drives the negative side of this problem. And it breeds self-loathing. Because without self-respect, you cannot live with truth. So let's go deeper. Let's find the root. Why so many people refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. And then until we go to this space, we're not actually reaching the root of the problem. And a lot of people don't want to talk about this, but we have to, as a unity. Remember, your mind is mental. You must stabilize it through balance between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. It's very important. When you start to do this, you will feel a shift. And also, I would have to say like an awakening, because it's a pattern. You start to see it and you move and you feel better. I mean, I've done it where I was working on only one side of the brain. Sometimes I would reach the other side, but I wasn't balanced. And then somebody told me about this, and this was years ago. And but also, I had my brain tumor, and that really made me start to educate myself on the left and right hemisphere of the brain. And that's really when I dove in 2012. So, example. This is an example. This is a case I'm making. If a child doesn't like themselves, if they feel unworthy, not good enough, if they carry imagined feelings of inadequacy and self-loathing, what you are actually seeing is the refusal to grow up. And really what I'm saying here, and I wrote my notes and I thought, we have to talk about this. What I'm saying is humanity equals a bunch of children who haven't grown up. And we see it. And I'm not saying the whole landscape, but many people are struggling, you know? So let's move on. And you have to ask, what kind of trauma did the child go through? So what kind of trauma did the adults go through? Because many are still living in the trauma, which is stopping them from reaching their potential. Most likely it's a specific type of trauma, and it's called abandonment. And humanity is suffering deeply from a parental abandonment. And it really lies at the very core of what we call human condition. So the human condition. And we haven't really dived into that. And I'm going to talk and speak a lot about this because I'm very interested in the psyche of humans. So we have been children on the planet, never truly, fully, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually grown up. As a species, we have undergone this kind of cosmic abandonment, which Mark Passio talks about. And I agree with him on this. So, like he says, the great work is like Sisyphus, rolling the boulder up the hill. And we just have to get it to the top. And we have to give it one last push. And like he says, we don't have to keep doing this over and over again, where we're struggling with our traumas, taking our own self-responsibility. We don't have to keep doing this. We have to just acknowledge that, yes, there's a problem, and we must address it. Right? Not run from it and, oh my God, I don't want to think about that and the trauma. We have to address it. Because who knows how many times we've already tried to do this and ended in failure. How many other, generations and extinctions that we've had, because we had many, that they've gotten to the tipping point and then boom, they didn't do it, but they were almost there. So we must know the real enemy and devote ourselves to the service of truth, not even the service to humanity, but to the service of truth. And the principles first. Because the service to humanity is not about me, you, us, and no. It's first about truth first inside. We need to become present with that and understand how truth is our number one goal. Within ourselves, not looking out there and pointing the finger, but ourselves. So the two most powerful statements that you can ever say, I was wrong and I love you. The most powerful word you will ever speak is no. No to crime, no to corruption, no to no more. This is how we reclaim our power and our freedom. This is how we get it back. This is the only, to me, when I look at the spiritual strategy for this entire earth and all humans, I look at the spiritual strategy as this. Because I can't change you, I can't change anybody. None of my family, my friends, that's not my job. But I can change within. And this is what this is all about, is to really look at truth. And an apology means taking back your words, which is very important. If you say something that's not nice, you say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. And that way you take back and you recourse what you said to that person, and the person could heal, or, if it was something bad, but you have to apologize. And an apology means, taking back those words. Humanity needs a cosmic apology. Opening our hearts and minds to truth. And saying the lost word. No. To evil, no to evil, and to the presence of evil in our lives. We just don't do it. You just decide not to do it. And this is what parents need to teach their children. To be honest, truthful, and say no to evil. It starts young at a child when they're little, and you have to be repetitive about it. So we either live in harmony with the natural law, and we create freedom, peace, prosperity, and the survival, or we reject it altogether. And we continue to be in balance. Things are, corruption and crime, or we collapse. Because this world is a balancing act. And it's not just, the outside world, nature, what have you. We have a lot to do with the outside world through our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and what we do with that, and how we think, because we change the energy through our energy. We're part of the field. We're all one field. We're all fractals. So, I hope everybody read the Matthew 10, 34 through 39, and replaced it with the truth. I think that that's the best way to look at it, is that how can you have a great family or friends or life if you're not putting truth at the very top, everything you do? A lot of people manipulate, and they get going on that game, like, if I don't do this, and I won't get my way, or I won't get what I want. But you don't have to do that. So my final thoughts are this. Truth is not just a virtue. It is the foundation for survival, freedom, and growth. This is where we're at, folks. When we live the natural law, we're no longer children of abandonment. And that means living in truth. We become beings of purpose, strength, and light. So ask yourself, not for me, not for humanity alone, but for the sake of truth itself, will you take the responsibility? Will you say no to what is false? Because there's so much mis and disinformation, but if you stop like listening to too much, blah, 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 you stop doing that, and then you internalize and go inside, and you have everything inside. Everything you have is on the inside. All the answers. You can contact any answer to any question you have through whatever, if it's meditation, prayer, because you're a fractal of everything. And your photons, which is light, they're not particles, it's light. It's a beam. You're beaming everywhere. That light can go anywhere. So you will you live to service truth? That's the question. So because when you do, you will not just change yourself, but you will help turn the tide for all of humanity. And energy is what we need to thrive. This type of energy. Energy never dies. And the battle is all about this. Whether it's a battle out there or you want to look inside, the battle within. And the battle usually is inside oneself. Have the courage to look at yourself, because there's nothing, what's going to happen? If even the most horrible thing happened to you, you can get through that. So that's it. That's part 2. Thank you for coming and listening, and I'll see you at the next video. Thank you. Have a great weekend.